Christchurch actually has a lot to offer. Most travellers would just pick up the rental car at the airport and just drive straight to Lake Tekapo or go up north. But I reckon this place actually worth at least 2 to 3 days just to explore, especially with all those stunning hiking trails around, such as this one called Godley Head. And there's a whole lot more just to get around the area, and you can actually see the coast like this. Akaroa is a French town of a very relaxing atmosphere, which is just 1 hour away from Christchurch, and it's definitely worth going to, although it's a bit of a drive there and back. It's another scenic drive to the mountain and also a lot of hiking trails in that area. If you're driving around the entire South Island, you will surely pass by this place called Kaikoura. It's a small town famous for whale watching, and there's also a seal colony here. Here in the video you can see it's supposed to be a seal colony, but we actually haven't seen too many of them around. There's also a short hiking trails along the peninsula overlooking the coast that's very, very nice to walk. Just half an hour away from Kaikoura towards Blenheim is another perfect spot for watching seals. Actually, there are way more seals than the one in Kaikoura, but this one you can't really get as close as the one in Kaikoura. Blenheim is also a great stopover if you're into wine tasting. There are more than 100 cellar doors in this region. Many of the winery offers free tasting for up to 3 kinds of wine. This one here called Clos Henri is the very unique one where the wine tasting venue is actually inside the renovated church building. But this specific one I think would pay for $5 New Zealand to share the tasting between all 4 of us, and it's quite a good deal. Unfortunately, we had a very long drive ahead of us and it was a very rainy day, so we visited just 3 of the winery and drove all the way towards Lake Rotoiti. I think the northern part of South Island is less travelled. Even though I've been in South Island for so many times, this is actually my first time to be here in this part of South Island. But I deliberately wanted to go off the beaten path a little bit just to check out these places. There are 2 lakes worth checking out. One is called Lake Rotoiti and the other one Lake Rotorua. Lots of hiking trails worth checking out around this area. Then we drove all the way back to Christchurch from Murchison on Highway 65 and 7. Overall, the northern part of South Island is not as dramatic as the south, but I suspect it's a lot to do with my emotional connection with the southern part, which has a lot of mountains, open landscapes, and more importantly, a lot of memories. Lake Tekapo is one of my favourite areas here in South Island. There's something very special about Lake Tekapo and the area around it. If you come here during December, even before reaching Tekapo, you will pass by a sea of lupins that's very impressive to see, with all the array of colourful flowers scattered around the roadside. All the way to Lake Tekapo you can see it. There's a tiny village here by the lake with a range of accommodations, cafe, supermarket and restaurant to enjoy an overnight stay. It's worth staying overnight as the sky above Lake Tekapo is ranked as one of the best spots in the world for stargazing. This is the iconic church called Church of Good Shepherd. There are actually church services running here in this church, and you can also arrange wedding service here as well. Make sure you go on a hike up to Mount John. You can hike directly from the town centre or drive and park at Tekapo Springs. You can go directly to the summit for half an hour or do the longer route that follows the side of the lake before heading to the summit. It's a very enjoyable hike with great panoramic view over Lake Tekapo on top. There's even a cafe at the very top. If you don't feel like driving up, there's also a private road that would cost you $5 New Zealand per car to drive up the top. For me, this is one of my favourite hiking trails in the South Island as it's very accessible, not too difficult, not too long, but the scenery is just stunning. It was a little bit overcast on that day, but still as good. If you have more time near Lake Tekapo, make sure that you check out the road off the main highway called Godley Peaks Road. It's another scenic drive that's free from tourists. And if you're in love with the lupins, there are way more of them here, and there's a little flat walkway to go around them. This road also takes you to two more lakes called Lake McGregor and Lake Alexandrina. The viewpoint Adrians Place is also a perfect spot for a picnic, but you might have to fight to park your car there. Lake Puikaki is another great scenic spot with the milky blue color of the lake. It used to be one of my favorite spots, but unfortunately not for this trip because of the weather turned a little bit stormy, and we're pretty much just gonna skip the lake and go straight to Mount Cook to try our luck to go on a hike. Mount Cook seems to be a place where you will need to be very lucky to get a good weather. I've been here twice and it's always been rainy. Luckily this time we waited for around half an hour and the rain stopped. There are a lot of impressive hiking trails with various degrees of difficulties to choose from. Hooker Valley Trail is the easiest one that's quite flat and go over 3 swing bridges. It's a very scenic trail overlooking the mountain range in front of you and around you all the way. From Mount Cook to Queenstown, it's a 3 hours drive, but after a long day of hike, you might actually just want to stay in Mount Cook or in Twizel or Marama to break the journey up a little bit. The road to Queenstown is a very scenic one, and it's worth taking your time to stop anytime you want to take photos, sheep gazing and lupin watching. Queenstown is an all-time favorite. You can literally stay here for like a week or a month without getting bored. I love the fact that it's surrounded by mountains and the longest lake in New Zealand called Lake Wakatipu. Queenstown really caters for everybody, and there's so much to do here. For those adrenaline junkie, there are all kinds of outdoor activities like skydiving, bungee jumping, helicopter riding, etc. If you love shopping, there are always the weekend market, and there's a large shopping mall that has everything. There's also the busy town centre that's packed with restaurants and cafes and shops. Make sure you book your accommodation well in advance, especially during December and January, before all the ones with the good deals are sold out real fast. If you don't want to spend any money and you love nature, there are lots and lots of scenic hikes with a range of difficulties to choose from. Make sure that you download the map from the government website or just simply go to one of the information centre to get a map around the area. This is a famous trail called Tiki Trail that starts from the Queenstown City Centre and takes you up to the top of the gondola, where there's a restaurant up there. You can also take the gondola up, and I think it's going to cost you around 20 something New Zealand dollar. The trail itself is around 1 hour return, and some parts are quite steep and very slippery. Not a good idea for a rainy day. Highly recommended to go to Queenstown Hill instead for a more scenic hike, much less tourists, and it's actually the best panoramic view of Queenstown. It also starts in the city centre and climb up around 500 meters to the top and takes around 3 hours return. This is one of my favorite hiking trails in Queenstown and also in South Island. You can really soak into the nature without being disturbed by tourists. There's no shops or cafe up here, it's just you and the 360 degrees of nature. A slightly longer hike that goes up, but it's definitely worth it. If you're into a more flat, gentle walk, you can go to Queenstown Gardens. There's a very nice park, botanical gardens, you can walk around. There are a lot of facilities, toilets and picnic spot and even playgrounds for children, and it's very scenic. There's a spectacular drive from Queenstown to Glenorchy, considered as one of the world's top scenic drives. Following the shores of Lake Wakatipu, just 45 minutes drive from Queenstown, you will be in a tiny village of Glenorchy. This part of New Zealand is one of my top favorite, easy to access by car, but has that very dramatic open space with the mountain backdrop. Glenorchy is off the beaten track, and it's a secret hideaway from the average tourist who spend all the time in Queenstown. There's a place called The Paradise, and indeed it is what it is called. Another 10 minutes from Glenorchy, you'll go past a place called Paradise Trust. There's a mini hiking trail inside going through the forest and then an open area with totally breathtaking view. Apparently there are cottage accommodation you can book for retreats or special events. This tiny town of Glenorchy is definitely worth checking out. You have the very scenic waterfront, and then you have the very atmospheric Mrs. Woolley's General Store, which sells coffee and books and souvenirs and things. Generally, this is a perfect town to get away from all the tourists in Queenstown. Since I've already been to Milford Sound, we decided to head all the way down to Invercargill Bluff to explore the southern tip of New Zealand. It's a change of scenery from mountain to ocean. There are a lot of scenic spots along the coast that's worth exploring, including Waipapa Point Lighthouse. We took a full day to drive through the southernmost part of New Zealand, which is part of the Kaikoura-Point National Park. Lots of gentle hiking along the way. Pretty much every 15 to 20 minutes you'll get to a scenic attraction. Park your car and just go down for a walk. Each stop is quite different. You have these waterfalls, lakes, hills, open landscape that you can just explore. I reckon Nugget Point Lighthouse might be the highlight of the southern part of New Zealand. It's an easy flat trail that goes to the very photogenic lighthouse overlooking the ocean. You can also see seals from a distance. A perfect place to stay is at a holiday park at New Haven. Surat Bay has a lot of seals on the beach, and if you're lucky you can see them up close. Dunedin Peninsula really is a standalone attraction apart from Dunedin town centre itself, as this is quite a big peninsula and has lots of hiking trails and scenic spots to stop by. This trail called Tunnel Beach is quite a steep trail going down and very steep coming up again, so make sure you're fit enough before venturing down. This is the famous Moreaki Boulder Beach, and I think it's a tourist trap, especially when the restaurant was recently built there and started charging money to get to the beach. There are some round boulders around the beach and it only takes a few minutes to finish visiting the whole spot. Great for a photo stop, but that's it. You won't miss much if you're rushing back to Queenstown. We should have visited the penguin colony instead. Feel free to check out all my other travel vlog and backpacking tips in this channel. Please hit subscribe if you find this video helpful and would like to follow all my travel journey around the world. I'll continue to bring updated travel tips for you guys.